Homeless boy finds baby abandoned in front of a church on Christmas Eve and decides to look for his parents. What he discovers leaves everyone in tears. The streets of St. Anthony's Haven were eerily quiet that cold Christmas Eve. Thin sheets of frost coated the pavement, reflecting the dim glow of old streetlights. For Gabriel, a 15-year-old homeless boy, the stillness amplified his solitude. His only companion was a threadbare backpack, filled with everything he owned. A couple of books salvaged from the trash, and a sweater too thin to ward off the biting chill. Gabriel wandered aimlessly, his stomach growling louder with each passing hour. His usual routine of scouring dumpsters for leftovers had proved fruitless this evening. It seemed the entire town was locked away in warm homes, enjoying festive dinners, completely unaware of the boy trudging through the icy streets. As he turned a corner near the old St. Benedict's church, he saw something peculiar. A wicker basket, sitting on the church steps. It wasn't uncommon to find discarded objects here, left by parishioners or passers-by. Yet this basket was different. From within it came a soft, almost imperceptible cry. Gabriel froze. His breath hung in the air, and he cautiously approached the basket. Pulling back a worn blanket, he discovered a baby. A tiny girl wrapped in a layer of rags. Her face was red from the cold, and she whimpered faintly. "Meu Deus," Gabriel whispered, his voice shaking. "What are you doing here, little one?" The infant's eyes fluttered open, meeting Gabriel's wide-eyed gaze. Instinctively, he picked her up, his hands trembling at the weight of such fragile life. She was impossibly light, her body stiff from the cold. Gabriel quickly wrapped his sweater around her. He glanced around the churchyard, hoping to see someone, anyone, who could explain why this baby was left here. But the streets were empty, and the silence pressed down like a heavy blanket. His mind raced. Should he leave her there and run for help? But what if no one came in time? She wouldn't survive the freezing night. No, he muttered to himself, clutching the baby closer. "I can't leave you here." Gabriel hurried to the back of the church, where he knew a priest, Father Julian, sometimes stayed late preparing for midnight Massachusetts. He knocked desperately on the door. After a tense moment, the door creaked open. "Gabriel!" Father Julian's weary eyes squinted at the boy, then widened at the bundle in his arms. What is this?" "I found her on the steps," Gabriel blurted. "She was just lying there. I think she's sick or cold, Father. Please help her." The priest stepped aside, motioning for Gabriel to enter. The warmth of the room enveloped them, and Gabriel felt the tension in his chest ease slightly. Father Julian gently took the baby, his experienced hands carefully inspecting her. He murmured a prayer under his breath. "She's malnourished but alive," Father Julian said after a moment. "You did well, Gabriel. You may have saved her life." As the priest prepared a small bottle of formula he kept for emergencies, Gabriel couldn't help but ask, who would leave a baby like this? And on Christmas Eve, Father Julian sighed deeply. Sometimes people are desperate. They think they're giving their child a better chance this way. But she deserves more than that, Gabriel said, his voice firm despite his own uncertain life. She deserves a family. The priest regarded him thoughtfully. And what about you, Gabriel? You've taken care of yourself all this time. Perhaps you were meant to find her tonight. Gabriel felt a strange sense of responsibility settle over him. I'll help you find her family, he said. We'll figure out why she was left here. Father Julian nodded solemnly. Then tomorrow we'll start looking. For now, let's call her Hope. The baby stirred at the sound of her name, her tiny fingers curling around the fabric of Gabriel's sweater. In that moment, he felt an unexplainable connection to her, as though the universe had brought them together for a reason. And as the bells of the church tolled midnight, Gabriel couldn't help but wonder, who were Hope's parents, and why had they abandoned her? The morning sun cast its pale light through the stained glass windows of the St. Benedict's church, painting the old stone walls with soft hues of red and blue. Gabriel sat in the church pews, cradling Hope. Her tiny breaths were steady now, her face more relaxed than the previous night. Father Julian had insisted Gabriel rest, but the boy couldn't sleep. his thoughts racing with questions about the baby's origins. Nearby, Father Julian sat at a wooden desk, flipping through a ledger. His gentle humming filled the quiet space as he prepared for the day's Christmas Massachusetts. Occasionally, he glanced at Gabriel and the baby, his face a mix of concern and curiosity. "She's calmer now," Gabriel said softly, not looking up. "Do you think she'll be okay?" "With warmth, food, and care, yes," the priest replied. "But we must act quickly. A child doesn't end up abandoned without a story behind it. And that story could hold dangers." "Dangers?" Gabriel frowned, his grip on hope tightening. "What do you mean?" Father Julian sighed. "It's hard to say, but children aren't usually left behind without deep pain or desperation. Whoever left her might be running from something, or someone." The thought made Gabriel uneasy. He looked down at Hope, her tiny fingers twitching in her sleep. Whoever her parents were, they must have been in dire circumstances to leave her on a cold stone step. "I'll stay with her," Gabriel said suddenly, "until we figure out where she belongs." The priest's eyebrows rose. "You've taken quite a liking to her already." Gabriel hesitated. He didn't understand the pull he felt toward the infant, but it was there, undeniable. "She needs someone, and I know what it's like to have no one." Father Julian studied him for a moment, then nodded. "All right, Gabriel, you can stay here for now. But if we're to help this little one, we'll need to reach out to the authorities." "No!" Gabriel's voice cracked as he stood abruptly. "You can't call them. If they take her, she'll end up in some cold orphanage. Just another kid no one wants." The priest regarded him patiently. "The system isn't perfect, but it exists for situations like this." Gabriel's jaw clenched. "I'll find her parents myself." "And how will you do that?" Father Julian asked gently, leaning forward. "You don't even know her name until yesterday." Gabriel paused, his determination wavering. He wasn't sure how, but he knew he couldn't let Hope go. "I'll ask around. Someone must know something." The priest leaned back, rubbing his chin thoughtfully. "It's a big risk, Gabriel. If someone sees you with her and misunderstands—" "I'll be careful," Gabriel interrupted. "Please, Father, give me a chance. Just a few days." After a long silence, Father Julian sighed. "All right, I'll delay contacting anyone for now. But you must tell me everything you find. This isn't something you can handle alone." Gabriel nodded, relief flooding him. "Thank you, Father." By mid-morning, the town began to stir. Parishioners trickled into the church, their voices hushed as they exchanged Christmas greetings. Gabriel stayed in the shadows, hidden in a corner with Hope. He didn't trust strangers easily, and he didn't want anyone asking questions about the baby. Once the last of the mass-goers had left, Father Julian handed Gabriel a list of local shelters and orphanages where mothers in distress might have sought help. "Start here," the priest instructed. "Ask questions, but keep the baby's presence to yourself for now. Say you're asking for me, on behalf of the church." Gabriel stuffed the list into his pocket, his mind already mapping out a plan. He bundled Hope in an extra blanket the priest had given him and slipped out the side door, the baby nestled securely against his chest. The streets of St. Anthony's Haven were livelier now, filled with people exchanging holiday greetings. Gabriel weaved through the crowd, his small frame barely noticeable amid the bustling townsfolk. He headed first to the nearest shelter, a modest building on the edge of town. Inside, a woman with kind eyes and graying hair greeted him. "Merry Christmas, young man. How can I help you?" Gabriel hesitated, clutching Hope tighter. I'm helping Father Julian from the church," he said. "I'm looking for a woman who might have stayed here recently. Maybe someone with a baby." The woman's expression softened. "We've had a few mothers pass through, but not in the last couple of weeks." "Why do you ask?" Gabriel stumbled for an answer. I think she might be in trouble." The woman's brow furrowed. "That's terrible. I wish I could help, but our records are private. Maybe you should speak to the local police." Gabriel shook his head quickly. "Thank you anyway." He left the shelter feeling deflated but determined to continue. He visited 2 more places on the priest's list, each one turning up nothing. By the time the sun began to set, Gabriel found himself at the edge of town, the warmth of the morning's hope now a faint ember. As he sat on the steps of an abandoned shop to catch his breath, hope stirred, letting out a tiny cry. Gabriel quickly rocked her, murmuring soothing words. "It's okay, Menina," he whispered. "We'll find them. Promise." Just then, an old man pushing a cart of scrap metal stopped nearby, eyeing Gabriel curiously. "That's a young un you've got there. Not yours, I take it." Gabriel hesitated, then shook his head. "I found her by the church. Do you know anyone who might have had a baby recently? Someone who might have been in trouble?" The man scratched his beard thoughtfully. "Now that you mention it, a girl came through here a few days ago, looking real lost. She was young, maybe 18 or 19. Didn't say much, but I saw her heading toward the train station." Gabriel's pulse quickened. "What did she look like?" "Thin, with short black hair. Wore a green coat, looked a bit too big for her. That's all I remember." "Thanks," Gabriel said, already rising. He hurried toward the station, a flicker of hope reigniting in his chest. As night fell and the first stars appeared, Gabriel knew one thing. The answers he sought lay just beyond his reach, but he was determined to find them. The train station on the outskirts of St. Anthony's Haven was a modest building with peeling paint and worn benches. Gabriel stood in its shadow, cradling hope, who had finally drifted into a peaceful sleep. The muffled clatter of trains arriving and departing created a rhythmic backdrop, blending with the murmurs of passengers exchanging holiday farewells. Gabriel scanned the platform, his heart pounding with anticipation. Somewhere in this place might lie the next clue about Hope's mysterious past. "Excuse me," he asked an elderly ticket vendor stationed near the entrance. "Have you seen a young woman? Short black hair? Green coat?" The man squinted at him. "I see plenty of people, Garoto. Why do you ask?" "I'm looking for someone who might have come here recently," Gabriel explained, lowering his voice. "She's important to someone." The vendor paused, scratching his head. "A girl like that, She bought a one-way ticket 2 days ago. Said she was heading to Greenville. Didn't seem like the traveling type, though. Looked scared. Did she say anything else? Anything at all?" Gabriel pressed. "Not to me," the man replied, shrugging. "But she spoke to one of the porters. Might want to ask him." Gabriel nodded his thanks and hurried to find the porter. A middle-aged man in a faded uniform stood near the luggage carts, sipping coffee from a thermos. Gabriel approached cautiously, adjusting the blanket around Hope as the baby let out a tiny whimper. "Good evening," Gabriel began. "I heard you spoke to a young woman a few days ago. Short black hair? Green coat?" The porter eyed him suspiciously. "Who's asking?" Gabriel hesitated. I'm helping Father Julian from the church. It's about the baby she might have been traveling with." At the mention of a baby, the porter's expression softened. "Ah yes, I remember her. Poor girl looked like she hadn't eaten in days. Kept pacing back and forth, clutching something under her coat. Didn't say much, but she asked about shelters in Greenville." "Shelters?" Gabriel repeated. The porter nodded. "I told her where she could find some, near the bus station in the city. That's all I know." Gabriel thanked him and stepped aside, his mind racing. Greenville was far, a journey of several hours by train, and the thought of traveling there with Hope felt daunting. Yet he had no choice. If this girl was the baby's mother, he had to find her. By the time Gabriel returned to the church, the sky was inky black, dotted with stars. Father Julian was waiting in the sacristy, his expression a mix of relief and worry when Gabriel walked in. "You've been gone all day," the priest said, rising from his chair. "I was starting to worry." Gabriel placed Hope in the makeshift crib the priest had set up and recounted everything he'd learned. Father Julian listened intently, nodding at intervals. "Greenville," the priest mused when Gabriel finished. "It's a big city. Dangerous for someone like you." "I have to go," Gabriel said firmly. "She could be there. She could be Hope's mother." Father Julian rubbed his temples. "Gabriel, you've done so much already. Perhaps it's time to let someone else take over." "No," Gabriel said, his voice unwavering. She's my responsibility now. I won't let her end up lost or forgotten." The priest regarded him for a long moment, then sighed. "Very well. I won't stop you, but promise me you'll be careful. And take this." He handed Gabriel a small envelope. Inside was a handful of crumpled bills, just enough for train fare and a bit of food. "Thank you," Gabriel said, his voice thick with gratitude. "I'll come back. Promise." The following morning, Gabriel boarded the early train to Greenville with Hope bundled in his arms. The ride was long, and the rattling of the train cars kept waking the baby. Gabriel rocked her gently, humming lullabies he barely remembered from his own childhood. Other passengers threw curious glances his way but said nothing. By the time they arrived at Greenville's bustling station, the sun was high, and the air was thick with the city's chaotic energy. Gabriel tightened his grip on Hope and stepped into the crowd, clutching the list of shelters he'd hastily copied from the priest's notes. The first shelter was a sprawling building near the bus terminal, its entrance lined with people seeking food and warmth. Inside, Gabriel approached a volunteer, a tired-looking woman sorting through Miss Tyans. "Excuse me," he said, his voice barely audible over the noise. "I'm looking for someone. Short black hair, green coat. She might have been here in the last few days." The woman frowned, thinking, "We get so many people, it's hard to keep track." But wait, she turned to a colleague. "Hey, Anna, didn't you speak to a girl like that recently?" Anna, a younger woman with a kind face, nodded. "Yes, she came in 2 days ago. Didn't stay long. Seemed skittish, like she was afraid of being followed. Did she have a baby with her?" Gabriel asked urgently. Anna hesitated. "No, but she kept mentioning one. Said she'd made a mistake, that she needed to fix it." Gabriel's heart pounded. "Do you know where she went?" "She didn't say," Anna replied, "but she asked about work, any place that might take someone without papers. I told her to try the Market District." Gabriel thanked her and hurried out, clutching Hope close. He didn't have much to go on, but he knew one thing. The girl was here, and she was searching for a way to survive. The question that haunted him now was whether she truly wanted her baby back, or if she had abandoned her for good. The Market District in Greenville was alive with chaos. The aroma of roasted meats and fresh fruits mixed with the tang of diesel from delivery trucks. Vendors called out to passing customers, their voices weaving through the clatter of carts and chatter of shoppers. Gabriel weaved through the crowd, clutching Hope, who stirred lightly in her makeshift sling. It was his first time in such a large city, and the sheer scale of it was overwhelming. Every corner seemed to hold another maze of alleys, another row of stalls. He couldn't shake the feeling of being a needle in a haystack. Still, he pressed on, stopping every few feet to ask if anyone had seen the girl he was searching for. "Short black hair, green coat," he repeated to a butcher wrapping cuts of pork. "No, kid," the man said, shaking his head. "Try down by the clothing stalls." At the clothing stalls, an elderly woman selling scarves narrowed her eyes as she considered his description. "Could be the girl I saw yesterday," she said. "She was asking for work, but I couldn't help her. Seemed desperate." Gabriel's chest tightened. "Do you know where she went?" The woman shrugged. "I told her to check with Ms. Martha. She runs the laundry 2 streets over." Gabriel thanked her and rushed off, his heart pounding. The streets became narrower as he approached the laundry, the noise of the market fading behind him. Outside a modest building with peeling blue paint, he found a stout woman hauling baskets of wet clothes onto a cart. "Excuse me," Gabriel said, his voice hoarse. "Are you Ms. Martha?" The woman turned, wiping her hands on her apron. "I am. What do you need, Garoto?" "I'm looking for a girl," Gabriel explained. "Short black hair, green coat. Someone said she might have come here looking for work." Ms. Martha's eyes softened with recognition. "Yes, she came by yesterday, but she didn't stay long. I told her I couldn't hire anyone. Too many mouths to feed as it is." "Did she say where she was going?" Gabriel asked, his hope dwindling with each word. "She mentioned something about the shelters again," Ms. Martha said. "Something about needing to make a decision." She seemed conflicted. Gabriel swallowed hard. "Thank you." As he turned to leave, Ms. Martha called after him. Wait, she left a bag behind. I thought she'd come back for it, but she never did. Maybe it's yours. She disappeared inside for a moment and returned with a tattered green canvas bag. Gabriel's hands trembled as he took it, noticing the initials M.A. stitched into the corner. He opened it cautiously, revealing a few worn items: a scarf, a comb, a photograph tucked into the side pocket. The photo was small and faded, showing a young woman, clearly the girl he was searching for, smiling with an older woman beside her. On the back, written in shaky handwriting, were the words, "Mom and me forever in my heart." Gabriel stared at the photo, his thoughts swirling. Was this her mother? Was she the reason the girl was here? And why had she left the bag behind? Is she in trouble? Ms. Martha asked gently. I don't know, Gabriel admitted, slipping the photo into his pocket. But I have to find her. As evening fell, Gabriel found himself back near the bus station, where the shelters were clustered. The streets were quieter now, lit by flickering neon signs and dim streetlights. Hope whimpered softly, and Gabriel paused to adjust her sling. You're all right, Menina, he murmured, his voice soothing. We're getting closer. He entered another shelter, this one smaller and less crowded than the others. A woman at the reception desk glanced up from her paperwork. Can I help you? Gabriel repeated his now familiar question, and the woman nodded. You're the second person to ask about her. Gabriel froze. Second? Who else was looking? A man, the woman replied, her tone cautious. Tall, thin, looked like he hadn't slept in days. He asked if we'd seen a girl matching that description. He didn't say why. What did you tell him? Gabriel asked, his voice tight. The truth, the woman said. That she'd been here but left after a few hours. She seemed nervous, like she was avoiding someone. Gabriel's pulse quickened. Do you know where she went? The woman hesitated. She mentioned staying near the old factory. It's abandoned now, but some of the homeless camp out there. Thank you, Gabriel said quickly, already heading for the door. Be careful, the woman called after him. It's not safe out there at night. The old factory loomed on the edge of the city like a skeleton of another era. Its rusted gates hung open, creaking in the wind. Gabriel hesitated at the entrance, clutching Hope tightly. He could hear muffled voices from inside, the low hum of conversation blending with the distant wail of sirens. Steeling himself, he stepped through the gates and into the shadows. The air smelled of mildew and rust, and broken glass crunched underfoot. He followed the sound of the voices to a corner where a few makeshift tents had been set up around a barrel fire. Excuse me, Gabriel said, addressing the small group huddled near the flames. I'm looking for someone. A girl with short black hair and a green coat. One of the men, a wiry figure with a scruffy beard, squinted at him. You mean Marianne? She was here earlier, but she left. Left for where? Gabriel asked desperately. The man shrugged, said she needed to find someone, said she'd made a mistake. Gabriel's heart sank. He was so close, but it felt like she was always one step ahead. As he turned to leave, the man added, if you're looking for her, you'd better hurry. That guy who was asking about her. He didn't look friendly. Gabriel froze. What do you mean? Mean-looking type, the man said. Didn't look like he wanted to help her. If you get what I mean. Gabriel's blood ran cold. Whoever this man was, he was after Marianne. And if he found her first, there was no telling what might happen. Without another word, Gabriel darted back into the night, the photo of Marianne and her mother burning a hole in his pocket. Somewhere out there, the girl who might hold the answers to Hope's story was running, and Gabriel knew he had to find her before it was too late. The night deepened as Gabriel hurried through the desolate streets surrounding the old factory. Greenville felt colder than St. Anthony's Haven ever had, the urban sprawl casting a chill that reached far beyond the physical. Gabriel clutched Hope to his chest, her faint warmth the only comfort against the encroaching darkness. The name Marianne repeated in his mind. If this girl was Hope's mother, her desperation and flight hinted at a complicated story. And now, danger loomed in the form of a mysterious man who was also seeking her. Gabriel's thoughts were interrupted by the sound of rapid footsteps behind him. Instinctively, he turned a corner into an alley, flattening himself against the wall. A figure appeared at the alley's mouth. A tall, thin man, exactly as described by the shelter worker. His movements were hurried, his head swiveling as though searching for someone. Gabriel held his breath. He shifted Hope slightly, trying to stifle the faint cooing sounds she made in her sleep. The man lingered for a moment, scanning the alley, then moved on. Gabriel exhaled shakily. Whoever this man was, he didn't seem like a friend. Gabriel waited until the man's footsteps faded before continuing, now more determined to find Marian first. Near the train yard on the city's northern edge, Gabriel found another encampment. A few shabby tents clustered under the skeletal frame of an unfinished building. A fire flickered in an old drum, casting eerie shadows across the gravel lot. Gabriel approached cautiously, his voice low as he addressed a woman sitting by the fire. "Disculp, I'm looking for someone. Her name's Marianne. Short black hair, green coat. Have you seen her?" The woman eyed him warily. "Who's asking?" I need to find her," Gabriel said, his voice tinged with desperation. "It's about her baby." The woman's expression softened. "She was here a few hours ago. Kept asking about how to leave the city. Said she didn't have much money but needed to get far away." "Do you know where she went?" Gabriel asked. The woman nodded toward the train yard. Said she might hop one of the freight trains heading west. "But if you're looking for her, you'd better hurry. I saw a man asking about her earlier." He looked angry. Gabriel's stomach churned. He thanked the woman and headed toward the train yard, his steps quick but careful. The metallic clanging of train cars echoed through the night, and faint beams of light swept the area as workers prepared the freight for departure. He spotted movement near one of the parked trains, a lone figure darting between the cars. Gabriel squinted, his heart leaping as he caught a glimpse of a green coat. "Marianne," he called out, his voice hoarse but urgent. The figure froze, then turned toward him. Even from a distance, Gabriel could see the fear in her posture. She took a hesitant step back, her face barely visible in the dim light. "Wait," Gabriel pleaded. "I'm not here to hurt you. Please." Marianne didn't move. Gabriel hesitated, then slowly approached, keeping his voice steady. "I found your baby," he said softly. "She's safe." At that, Marianne's expression crumpled, and she sank to her knees. Gabriel closed the distance cautiously, kneeling a few feet away from her. Hope stirred in his arms, letting out a faint cry. "Is that her?" Marianne whispered, her voice trembling. Gabriel nodded, gently lowering Hope so Marianne could see her. Tears streamed down the young woman's face as she reached out with shaking hands. She hesitated, then pulled back, as though afraid to touch her. "I thought I was doing the right thing," Marianne said, her voice breaking. "I thought someone would find her and give her a better life." Gabriel's heart ached at the anguish in her voice. "Why did you leave her?" he asked gently. Marianne shook her head, her sobs choking her words. "I didn't want to. I had no choice. I couldn't protect her. I couldn't give her anything." She glanced nervously over her shoulder, her eyes darting to the shadows. "But he found me," she whispered. "I thought I'd escaped him, but he's here." "Who?" Gabriel asked. "Who's after you?" "My ex," Marianne said, her voice barely audible. "Charles. He's dangerous. He said he didn't want the baby. Said she wasn't his. But then he changed. He said if I didn't stay with him, he'd hurt her." Gabriel's blood ran cold. He tightened his grip on Hope instinctively. "Does he know she's with me?" Marianne shook her head. "I don't think so. He thinks I left her at the church to punish him. But if he finds out," her voice faltered, "he'll come for her. For both of us." Gabriel's mind raced. "We have to get out of here," he said. "Both of you. Somewhere safe." Marianne hesitated, her eyes searching his face. "Why are you helping me? You don't even know me." Gabriel looked down at Hope, now sleeping peacefully in his arms. "Because she deserves better than this. And so do you." Marian stared at him for a long moment, then nodded. There's a women's shelter downtown. They might be able to help us, but we can't go now. Charles is still out there. We'll wait, Gabriel said firmly. But when we go, we stick together. For the first time, Marian smiled faintly. Thank you, she whispered. As the night stretched on, Gabriel kept watch while Marian held her daughter for the first time in days. Though the shadows of danger lingered, a fragile hope began to take root. Their paths now intertwined as they prepared for what lay ahead. The hours passed slowly in the shadows of the train yard. Gabriel sat against a rusted cargo container, his eyes scanning the perimeter for any sign of Charles. Marian cradled Hope in her arms, the baby's soft coos breaking the silence. You said there's a shelter downtown, Gabriel whispered, glancing at Marianne. How far is it? Not far by bus, Marian replied, her voice subdued. But walking with a baby, it could take hours. Gabriel thought for a moment, weighing their options. We can't take the main streets, he said. If Charles is looking for you, that's where he'll be. Marian nodded. There's a side road that leads to the bus terminal. It's quieter, but she hesitated. He knows this city better than I do. He could be anywhere. Gabriel felt a knot tighten in his stomach. He looked at Hope, now asleep again in Marianne's arms, and knew they had no choice but to move. Staying in the train yard was too risky. Charles might not know where they were now, but that could change in an instant. We'll take the side road, Gabriel said finally. We'll stay in the shadows and move fast. If anything happens, we won't let anything happen, Marian interrupted, her voice firm despite the fear in her eyes. They slipped out of the train yard just as the first light of dawn painted the horizon. The streets were eerily quiet, the usual buzz of the city still hours away. Gabriel led the way, keeping close to the buildings and alleyways. Marian followed, clutching Hope tightly, her eyes darting nervously at every sound. The side road was narrow and lined with overgrown shrubs. It felt like an entirely different world from the bustling market district or crowded shelters they'd visited earlier. But the sense of isolation also brought an edge of vulnerability. Halfway down the road, Gabriel froze, his ears picking up the faint sound of footsteps behind them. He motioned for Marianne to stop and pressed a finger to his lips. Slowly, he peered around the corner of a building. A man stood at the other end of the street, his silhouette unmistakable even in the dim light. Tall and thin with a sharp, angular face, Charles. Gabriel's breath caught in his throat. He turned back to Marianne, who was clutching Hope so tightly that the baby stirred and whimpered. It's him, Gabriel whispered. We need to go. Now. Marianne's face went pale, but she nodded, her grip on her daughter firm. They slipped into a narrow alley, their pace quickening as Charles's footsteps grew louder behind them. The chase was relentless. Every turn they took seemed to lead to another dead end or another stretch of open road where they risked being seen. Gabriel's mind raced, trying to remember the layout of the city from the maps he'd seen at the church. This way, he called, leading Marianne into a courtyard surrounded by dilapidated buildings. But as they reached the center of the courtyard, Charles's voice rang out behind them. Marianne, he bellowed, his tone a mix of fury and triumph. Stop running. You're only making this harder on yourself. Marianne turned, her eyes wide with terror. Gabriel stepped in front of her, his arms outstretched protectively. You don't need to do this, Gabriel said, his voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through him. Just let them go. Charles laughed, a harsh, hollow sound. Who are you, kid? Her new knight in shining armor? This doesn't concern you. It concerns me now, Gabriel shot back. Leave them alone. Charles took a step forward, his eyes narrowing. You don't know what you're getting into, and you don't know what I've been through, Gabriel replied, his voice low. I'm not afraid of you. For a moment, Charles hesitated, clearly not expecting such defiance from a boy half his size. But then his expression darkened, and he lunged toward Gabriel. Run! Gabriel yelled, throwing himself in Charles's path. Marianne hesitated for a split second, then turned and bolted toward the far side of the courtyard, clutching Hope. Charles shoved Gabriel aside, sending him sprawling onto the ground. The man's focus was entirely on Marian now, his strides long and deliberate. But Gabriel wasn't about to give up. He scrambled to his feet, grabbing a piece of broken wood from the ground. Without thinking, he hurled it at Charles's legs, catching him off balance. The man stumbled, cursing loudly. "Go!" Gabriel shouted again, his voice hoarse. Marian disappeared through a narrow passageway, her silhouette vanishing into the dawn. Gabriel felt a surge of relief, but it was short-lived. Charles recovered quickly, his eyes blazing with anger as he turned back to Gabriel. "You shouldn't have done that," Charles growled, advancing on him. Gabriel backed up, his mind racing for a way out. But before Charles could reach him, the sound of sirens pierced the air. Blue and red lights flickered in the distance, growing closer with every second. Charles froze, his gaze darting between Gabriel and the approaching police cars. Without another word, he turned and fled, disappearing into the shadows. Gabriel stood there, trembling, as the sirens grew louder. Moments later, a police car screeched to a halt nearby, and two officers stepped out. "Are you all right, kid?" one of them asked, his tone urgent. Gabriel nodded shakily. He went that way," he said, pointing in the direction Charles had fled. The officers exchanged a glance. Then one of them took off in pursuit while the other stayed with Gabriel. "Who was that?" the officer asked. "A bad man," Gabriel replied, his voice steadying. "But I need to go. My friends need me." The officer looked at him skeptically. "It's dangerous out here. You should come with us." "I can't," Gabriel said firmly. "They're waiting for me. Please." After a long pause, the officer sighed. "All right, but be careful." Gabriel nodded and took off in the direction Marian had gone, his legs burning but his resolve unshaken. He had done what he needed to do, bought them enough time to escape. Now he just had to find them before it was too late. Gabriel sprinted through the quiet streets of Greenville, his lungs burning and his legs trembling with exhaustion. He followed the faint footprints in the dust-covered pavement where Marianne had disappeared with Hope. Every corner he turned brought a new wave of anxiety, the fear that Charles might find them again. Finally, he reached an old pedestrian bridge spanning a shallow canal. Below, faint murmurs echoed off the graffiti-covered walls. Gabriel crouched and peered over the edge. Marianne was there, huddled beneath the bridge with Hope wrapped tightly in her arms. Relief washed over him, and he climbed down carefully, the sound of his descent startling Marianne. She jerked her head up, her tear-streaked face a mixture of fear and hope. "It's me," Gabriel said quickly, raising his hands. "He's gone." The police came. Marianne exhaled sharply, her entire body sagging with relief. You stopped him?" Gabriel nodded, sitting down beside her. "For now. But we can't stay here. He's not going to give up." Marianne stared down at Hope, who was sleeping soundly. "I thought I'd lost her for good," she whispered. "When I left her at the church, I hated myself. But I thought it was the only way to keep her safe." "You still can," Gabriel said. "We just have to get to that shelter." Marianne hesitated, her fingers brushing the soft blanket around Hope. "They'll help us?" she asked, her voice trembling. Gabriel's determination shone through his exhaustion. "They will. But we need to move before Charles realizes where we're heading." As dawn broke over the city, Gabriel and Marianne kept to the quieter streets, avoiding any place Charles might be searching. The first rays of sunlight brought a faint warmth to their cold, tired bodies, but they didn't dare stop. The shelter Marianne had mentioned was in a modest building near a quiet plaza. Its sign, faded but welcoming, read, "Women and Children's Support House." Gabriel held the door open for Marianne, who hesitated on the threshold, clutching Hope. "It's all right," Gabriel reassured her. "You're safe here." They stepped inside, the scent of freshly brewed coffee and warm bread filling the air. A kind-faced woman behind the front desk looked up and smiled. "Good morning. How can we help you?" Marianne swallowed hard. I need help," she stammered. "For me and my baby." The woman's smile widened, and she gestured for them to come closer. "You've come to the right place. Let's get you settled first. Then we'll talk. Marian nodded, tears brimming in her eyes as a younger staff member led her and Hope into a quiet room down the hall. Gabriel started to follow, but the woman at the desk stopped him gently. "Are you with them?" she asked. "Yes," Gabriel said quickly. "I found them. I don't want anything to happen to them." The woman regarded him with a curious expression. "You look like you've been through a lot yourself. Why don't you rest for a while? We'll take care of them now." Gabriel hesitated. For days, he had carried the weight of responsibility for Hope and Marianne, his own needs pushed aside. The thought of resting felt foreign, even selfish. But the woman's kind eyes left no room for argument. "All right," he murmured. "Just for a little while." Hours later, Gabriel awoke on a small couch in the shelter's lounge. A blanket had been draped over him, and a plate of food sat on the table nearby. His stomach growled, reminding him that he hadn't eaten since the night before. He devoured the meal quickly, then made his way down the hall to find Marianne. He found her in a cozy room with soft lighting. Hope lay in a crib nearby, bundled warmly and sleeping peacefully. Marianne sat on the edge of the bed, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. She looked up as Gabriel entered, her expression a mix of gratitude and uncertainty. "They've been so kind," she said softly. "They said we can stay here for as long as we need." "That's good," Gabriel said, sitting beside her. "You're safe now." Marianne bit her lip, her gaze dropping to her hands. "I don't know how to thank you," she whispered. "You saved us. Twice." Gabriel shook his head. "I just did what anyone would have done." "No," Marianne said firmly. "Most people would have walked away. But you didn't. You gave us hope when I thought we had none." Gabriel felt a lump in his throat but managed a small smile. "It's what hope deserves." Marianne reached out and took his hand. "And what about you? Where will you go now?" The question caught Gabriel off guard. In all the chaos, he hadn't thought about what came next for him. He had spent so long surviving day by day that the idea of a future felt almost impossible. "I don't know," he admitted. "I never really had a plan." Marianne's grip on his hand tightened. "You deserve better too, Gabriel. Maybe you could stay. At least for a while." Gabriel looked at her, surprised. "You mean here? At the shelter?" "Why not?" Marianne asked. "You've done so much for us. Maybe it's time to let someone take care of you for a change." The thought was both comforting and terrifying. Gabriel had spent so long on his own, relying only on himself, that the idea of trusting others felt like stepping into unknown territory. But as he looked at Marianne and Hope, he realized that, for the first time in a long time, he wasn't alone. "Maybe," he said finally, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "Maybe I will." The three of them sat in silence as the first rays of sunlight filtered through the window, bringing with them the promise of a new beginning. The days that followed brought a strange but welcome calm to Gabriel's life. At the shelter, life unfolded at a gentler pace, free from the constant hunger and fear that had defined his existence on the streets. The staff treated him with warmth, and for the first time, Gabriel felt like he belonged somewhere. Marianne and Hope thrived under the shelter's care. Hope, now healthier and more alert, became a favorite among the volunteers, her bright eyes and tiny giggles filling the once quiet halls. Marianne, too, seemed lighter, though the shadows of her past still lingered in her eyes. "You've got a natural way with her," one of the volunteers said to Gabriel as he played peekaboo with Hope. The baby squealed in delight, her tiny hands reaching for him. "She's special," Gabriel replied, his voice soft. "She makes me feel like I'm not just a nobody." "You've never been a nobody," Marianne said from across the room. She approached with a small smile, her hands filled with freshly laundered baby clothes. "Not to me. Not to her." Gabriel glanced down, embarrassed by the compliment, but her words warmed him more than he cared to admit. Despite the safety the shelter provided, Gabriel knew their reprieve wouldn't last forever. Charles was still out there, and the man's relentless pursuit left a constant undercurrent of tension. One afternoon, Gabriel overheard a hushed conversation between Marianne and the shelter director, Ms. Elisa. "If Charles comes here," Marianne's voice faltered, What if he tries to take her? Don't worry, Ms. Elisa reassured her. We have protocols in place, and the police are aware of your situation now. You're not alone in this. Marian nodded, but the worry etched on her face didn't fade. Later that evening, Gabriel found her sitting in the common area, staring out the window as the sun dipped below the horizon. Thinking about him? Gabriel asked, sitting beside her. Marian nodded. I don't know if he'll ever stop. He's like a storm, always circling, always waiting. We'll protect her, Gabriel said firmly. We'll protect you. Marian turned to him, her eyes glistening. You've done so much already, Gabriel. More than I ever could have asked. But what about you? What do you want for your life? The question hit Gabriel like a freight train. He opened his mouth, then closed it, unsure how to respond. No one had ever asked him that before. I don't know, he admitted after a long silence. I guess I've never had the luxury of thinking about it. Marian placed a hand on his arm. Maybe it's time you did. That night, Gabriel lay awake on the small cot in his room. The distant hum of city life filtered through the window, mingling with the soft sounds of the shelter's other residents. Marianne's question echoed in his mind. What did he want? For so long, survival had been his only goal. But now, for the first time, he saw a glimmer of something more. A future, perhaps, where he wasn't defined by his struggles, where he could be someone hope might look up to someday. The thought both scared and excited him, but it was enough to spark a sense of determination he hadn't felt before. The next morning, Gabriel joined Marianne in the kitchen as she prepared breakfast for Hope. The baby gurgled happily in her high chair, smearing mashed bananas across the tray. I've been thinking, Gabriel began, his voice hesitant. When this is over, when we know you're safe, I want to go back to school. Maybe get a job. Do something better. Marianne's face lit up with a smile. That's wonderful, Gabriel. You'd be great at anything you set your mind to. Maybe, he said with a shrug, but it feels impossible sometimes. Like the world's already decided who I am. Marian stepped closer, her expression serious. The world doesn't decide who you are, Gabriel. You do. Her words stayed with him as the day unfolded, fueling a growing sense of hope. For the first time, he began to imagine a life beyond the streets, a life where he could build something for himself. But just as hope began to take root, the fragile peace was shattered. That evening, as Gabriel helped a volunteer clear the dining area, a commotion erupted near the front entrance. Raised voices echoed down the hall, sending a ripple of unease through the shelter. Gabriel rushed toward the noise, his heart pounding. He found Marian standing protectively in front of Hope's crib, her face pale. At the door, 2 shelter staff members were attempting to block Charles from entering. His face was twisted with rage, his sharp features even more menacing in the flickering fluorescent light. You think you can keep her from me? Charles snarled, his voice low and dangerous. She's mine. Both of them are. You need to leave, one of the staff said firmly, standing their ground. You're trespassing. Charles sneered but didn't back down. You don't understand. That baby, she's all I have left, and I'll do whatever it takes to get her back. From the shadows of the hallway, Gabriel watched, his blood boiling. He clenched his fists, willing himself to stay calm. Confronting Charles head-on would only escalate the situation. Call the police, Gabriel whispered to Marianne, who nodded and slipped away to find a staff member with a phone. As the tension mounted, Charles's voice grew louder. You think you're helping her? You're making it worse. She'll regret this. You all will. Before anyone could respond, the distant wail of sirens cut through the air. Charles's head snapped toward the sound, and for a brief moment, panic flashed across his face. He glared at the staff blocking his path, then turned and fled into the night. The staff quickly secured the door, and the shelter fell into a tense silence. Gabriel exhaled slowly, his fists unclenching as the weight of the moment settled over him. But deep down, he knew this wasn't over. Charles wouldn't give up so easily, and as Gabriel glanced at Marianne, holding a now crying Hope, he realized the battle to keep them safe had only just begun. The shelter buzzed with tension after Charles's abrupt appearance. Marian clung to hope, her pale face betraying the storm of fear and guilt she carried. Gabriel stood by the window in the common area, peering through the curtains at the now quiet street. His fists clenched at his sides, as though sheer force of will could keep Charles from returning. Ms. Elisa, the shelter's director, gathered everyone, staff and residents alike, for an emergency meeting. Her calm but authoritative tone brought a fragile sense of order to the room. "We've contacted the police," she began, her sharp eyes scanning the group. "They've assured us they're increasing patrols in the area, and we're implementing additional security measures here. But we need to remain vigilant." Marian sat in the back, rocking Hope gently as the baby began to fuss. Gabriel moved closer, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "What happens if he comes back?" Marian asked, her voice trembling. Ms. Elisa's gaze softened. "We won't let him near you. This shelter is a place of protection, and we'll do everything in our power to keep it that way." Her words were met with murmurs of agreement, but the unease in the room lingered. For Gabriel, the idea of relying on police patrols and locked doors felt woefully inadequate. Charles had already proven his determination. Who was to say he wouldn't try something more desperate next time? That night, Gabriel lay awake in his cot, staring at the ceiling as shadows danced across the room. Every creak and rustle of the old building set his nerves on edge. His thoughts spiraled, alternating between fear for Marianne and hope and anger at Charles. He glanced across the room where Marian sat in a rocking chair, softly humming to soothe Hope back to sleep. Despite the exhaustion etched into her face, there was a quiet strength in the way she cradled her daughter, a strength Gabriel envied. "I'm not going to let him hurt you," Gabriel said suddenly, his voice breaking the stillness. Marian looked up, surprised. "You've already done so much, Gabriel," she said. "You don't have to carry this burden alone." "I want to," Gabriel insisted, sitting up. "You and Hope, you're the closest thing I have to family. And family protects each other." Marianne's eyes glistened with unshed tears. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the baby's soft breaths. The next day, Gabriel decided it was time to take action. He approached Ms. Elisa in her office, the determination in his eyes catching her attention immediately. "I need to help," he said. "I can't just sit around waiting for something to happen." Ms. Elisa set down her pen, her expression thoughtful. "What are you proposing, Gabriel?" "I don't know yet," he admitted. "But I need to be ready. I want to learn how to defend myself." And them. The director studied him for a moment, then nodded. "There's a community center nearby. They run self-defense classes. I'll make a few calls and see if we can get you in." "Thank you," Gabriel said, relief flooding him. "But Gabriel," she added, her tone serious, "violence isn't always the answer. Sometimes the best way to protect someone is to avoid confrontation altogether." Gabriel nodded, but deep down, he knew he had to be prepared for whatever came next. The following weeks brought a sense of cautious stability. The shelter implemented tighter security protocols, including a 24-hour watch by volunteers. Gabriel threw himself into the self-defense classes at the community center, his focus sharpening with each lesson. The instructor, a retired police officer named Mark, quickly took notice of the boy's determination. "You've got good instincts," Mark said one afternoon after class. "But remember, it's not just about strength. It's about staying calm under pressure." Gabriel nodded, his jaw set. "I'll do whatever it takes." Mark patted his shoulder. "You're doing good, kid. Keep it up." Back at the shelter, Gabriel shared what he learned with Marianne. Though hesitant at first, she listened carefully, taking mental notes on how to react if Charles ever confronted her again. "I don't know if I could ever fight back," she admitted one evening. "I've spent so long feeling powerless." "You're stronger than you think," Gabriel said firmly. "And you're not alone anymore." Despite their efforts, the threat of Charles lingered like a dark cloud. His absence in the days and weeks following his initial appearance only deepened the tension. It was as though he were waiting, biding his time until they let their guard down. That sense of unease came to a head one rainy evening. Gabriel was helping clean up after dinner when he noticed a figure lingering near the shelter's entrance. His heart raced as he moved closer, peering through the rain-speckled window. It wasn't Charles, but someone he recognized. The tall, scruffy man from the train yard encampment. The man's eyes darted nervously as he glanced at the building. Gabriel opened the door a crack. "What are you doing here?" The man shuffled his feet, avoiding eye contact. "I don't want trouble," he said, "but I saw him. The guy you're hiding from. He's asking questions again." "Where?" Gabriel demanded. "Near the market," the man replied. "Said he's looking for his kid. He doesn't look good, desperate." Gabriel's stomach churned. He thanked the man and closed the door, his mind racing. Charles was getting closer, and his desperation made him even more dangerous. That night, Gabriel gathered Marianne and Ms. Elisa in the common room. "We need a plan," he said. "We can't wait for him to come here again." Ms. Elisa nodded. "Agreed. I'll contact the police and have them increase their patrols around the market district. And we should be ready to move," Gabriel added. "If he finds this place, we need to have somewhere else to go." Marianne's face tightened with fear, but she nodded. Whatever it takes to keep Hope safe. The shelter began preparing for the worst, setting up contingencies in case they needed to evacuate quickly. Gabriel stayed close to Marianne and Hope, his protective instincts sharpening with every passing hour. He knew the storm was coming, and this time he would be ready. The tension in the shelter was palpable, every resident and staff member on edge as the days crept by. Gabriel barely slept, his senses attuned to every sound in the night. He had learned to read the unease in Marianne's expression, the way she held Hope just a little tighter each time she thought of Charles. One evening, as the rain pattered against the windows, Gabriel sat with Marianne in the common room. Hope slept soundly in her arms, her tiny chest rising and falling in the soft glow of a nearby lamp. "You're thinking about him," Gabriel said gently. Marianne nodded. "I can't help it. Every time I close my eyes, I see his face. I keep wondering, what if we can't get away?" Gabriel reached out, placing a hand on her arm. "We will," he said firmly. "We've come this far, and we're not giving up now." Marianne looked at him, her eyes glistening. "I don't know where I'd be without you." "Safe," Gabriel replied. "That's all that matters." The storm broke the next morning, not in the sky, but in the form of Charles's arrival. Gabriel was helping in the kitchen when he heard the commotion at the front entrance. His heart sank as he rushed toward the noise, finding Charles pounding on the door, his voice a mix of anger and desperation. "I know she's in there," Charles shouted, his fists slamming against the reinforced wood. "You can't keep her from me." The staff held firm, refusing to let him in. Marianne appeared at the end of the hall, clutching Hope as she froze in terror. Gabriel ran to her side, blocking her view of the door. "Take her to the back room," he urged. "Stay there and don't come out until I say." Marianne hesitated, fear rooting her in place. "But go," Gabriel snapped, his voice filled with urgency. She nodded, clutching Hope tightly as she disappeared down the hall. Gabriel returned to the front, his fists clenched as he faced Charles through the door's small glass pane. "You need to leave," he said, his voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through him. Charles's eyes narrowed. "You again? You think you can stop me? That baby is mine. She's my blood. You lost the right to call her yours when you made them afraid of you," Gabriel shot back. "She deserves better than this." Charles's expression twisted with rage. "You don't know anything about me, kid, about what I've been through." "I know enough," Gabriel said. "And I know she doesn't need you in her life." Charles slammed his palm against the glass, cracking it. "I'll find her," he growled. "You can't hide her from me forever." Before Gabriel could respond, the sound of sirens filled the air. Charles's head whipped around as two police cars pulled up to the shelter, their lights flashing. Officers stepped out, their hands resting on their holsters. "This is your last warning," one of them called. "Step away from the door." Charles hesitated, his body coiled with tension. For a moment, Gabriel thought he might try to fight, but then the man's shoulders slumped. He turned and began walking away, his figure disappearing into the morning mist. The officers entered the shelter, their presence a welcome relief. Ms. Elisa approached them, her calm demeanor steadying the room. "Thank you for coming," she said. "We've been dealing with his threats for weeks. We'll file a restraining order," one officer replied, "and we'll increase patrols in the area. If he comes back, call us immediately." Gabriel exhaled, the weight of the encounter settling over him. As the officers left, he turned to find Marianne standing at the end of the hall, hope still in her arms. "Is he gone?" she asked, her voice trembling. Gabriel nodded. "For now. But if he comes back, we'll be ready." Marianne's eyes filled with tears. She stepped forward, pulling Gabriel into a hug, careful not to wake the baby between them. "Thank you," she whispered, "for everything." The days that followed were quiet but filled with cautious hope. Charles didn't return, and the shelter continued its efforts to help Marianne and Hope rebuild their lives. Gabriel stayed close, helping wherever he could and beginning to explore the possibilities of his own future. One afternoon, as they sat in the shelter's courtyard, Marianne turned to him with a thoughtful expression. "Have you thought about what's next for you?" Gabriel shrugged. "I guess I'll stay here for a while. Maybe find work or go back to school." Marianne smiled. "You'd be great at either. But whatever you choose, just know you've already made a difference. To me, to Hope." Gabriel looked at the baby, who was reaching for a butterfly fluttering nearby. A small smile tugged at his lips. "She's the real difference," he said. "She makes everything worth it." Marianne placed a hand on his shoulder. "You're part of this family now, Gabriel. No matter what." For the first time in his life, Gabriel felt like he belonged. As the sun set over Greenville, painting the sky in hues of gold and crimson, he knew their story wasn't over. But together, they would face whatever came next, with hope, courage, and a bond forged in the hardest of times. The end marked a new beginning. For Gabriel, Marianne, and Hope, the future was finally theirs to shape.